Hello everyone, this is Tomas Pospisek and today I would like to present you challenges of high-speed weight-in-motion direct enforcement and best practices with local legislation. Let's start. This is the agenda of the presentation. I will speak about myths that are around direct enforcement and answer some very basic questions. I will mention the history that goes from manual weight enforcement to automatic systems. Little bit mention benefits, why direct enforcement systems are getting more and more popular, and what is most important, where does it work, how is it regulated, and show you best practices from the countries that have implemented direct enforcement. Finally, even some bonus for you. Basic questions. Let's start with the very basic one. What is weight enforcement or direct enforcement? Well, all that is about to check the gross vehicle weight and axle load compliance of vehicles, especially heavy trucks, and consequent penalization in case if these values are not met. Direct enforcement is a process when the weight control is done automatically without almost any human intervention, and it is done by a high-speed WIM system. The question that we are being asked quite frequently is that direct enforcement it's not possible and that everybody's only talking about it without actually doing it. Well, this is false. At this moment, there are several countries that have successfully implemented and that are operating direct enforcement using high-speed WIM. Another question. There are no standards for direct enforcement. Well, this is true. There is no single global standard that is accepted everywhere. However, locally, the governments are using locally customized legislations and procedures using some available international standards that I will talk later on about. Another point, there is no technology or WIM system that is accurate enough to be used for direct enforcement. This is also not true. There are several certified systems available on the market, including the Kistler one. Last one on this page, direct enforcement can be fully automatic without human intervention. Well, that is a difficult one. This depends on local procedures, but usually there is a manual recheck or validation before a penalty goes out to the offender. On this slide, I will quickly inform you about the history of the weight enforcement. Well, it all starts with manual weight control using roadside control with mobile scales. This is approach that is used in many situations up to date. Later on, this process developed into so-called pre-selection approach that combines the high-speed weight in motion installed on the main track with the static system that double checks and precisely weights the vehicle that was labeled as possibly overloaded from the high-speed system on the highway. This is semi-automatic process. Finally, there is a system that we call direct enforcement that completely consists of a technology that is installed permanently on the road or a highway, checks all the passing vehicles, automatically selects the overloaded, and sends the data to the processing center. Obviously, the efficiency of enforcement grows in this direction. That means that the number of the vehicles that are checked by the direct enforcement system is much higher than with the manual control. Benefits. What are the major benefits of direct enforcement system and why it is getting so popular? Well, as I told you, this is definitely the most efficient and effective way of weight enforcement at the moment. The hit rate is more than 99%. That is to say that the automatic direct enforcement systems are able to control and check almost all passing vehicles. You reduce the staff used for manual checks and roadside controls. And that is clear, this system using high-speed scales is most appropriate one for highway network with very heavy traffic that would be difficult to check with other procedures. Obviously, there are the traditional benefits of any weight in motion system, which is to prevent damage on roads and bridges that are done by overloaded vehicles, improve the traffic safety while reducing the overloaded vehicles, and of course also stop unfair competition among transport companies. Last but not least, there are also considerable financial benefits of direct enforcement. It generates the revenue for road maintenance from the penalties, obviously. The experience shows us that typically a high-speed direct enforcement system is paid very quickly, sometimes in question of few months after its installation. Where does it work? On this world map, you can see all the countries that have successfully implemented direct enforcement and are operating it. We can start talking about China, where it is legal since 2004, but the operation started only in 2016. At the moment, there are 1,500 lanes equipped with direct enforcement WIM sites. Czech Republic, another country where the process from adopting legal measures in 2010 until 2015 took quite a long time. However, it is in operation now, and there are 5 WIM sites in this direct enforcement regime. Russia, the legal changes were adopted in 2013. In operation, the systems went in 2015, and currently the network consists of more than 40 WIM sites on different classes of road, and network is still expanding. Last but not least, the country that took a decision to implement the nationwide system of high-speed weight in motion direct enforcement sites is Hungary, where adopted the legal changes in 2016 and the full system went into operation in 2018. It contains 62 WIM sites all over the country that are used for direct enforcement. There are others that work in the pre-selection mode. In this very moment, there are more countries discussing the implementation of direct enforcement, taking experience from the countries where it is legal already. We are talking here about Belgium, where the preparations are quite advanced. France, that is also preparing to start with direct enforcement in 2021. Brazil, the discussion is going on there too. And also Thailand. And maybe the list is not full, as I mentioned, the benefits of the high-speed weight in motion direct enforcement is evident, and it is getting more and more popular. Let's have a look at some numbers. This is statistics from the two countries that are operating direct enforcement since some time. It is Russia and Czech Republic. If we look at the Russian figures delivered by Federal Road Agency, Rosavtodor, from the year 2019, we can mention that there were almost 6 million vehicles measured by the WIM sites, while 266,000 of them were violating some rules of overloaded total weight or axle weight, and 760,000 others were bigger than allowed. That is to say, violating the dimensions limits. On the picture, you see a typical weight in motion site on a Russian road in the regional area, Czech Republic. These are the data from the 5 operational WIM sites in the country. Average data per year in the last few years shows that there were 3,500 violations of weight. The income from penalties was more than €500,000. And on average, there are 3% of trucks that are measured are overloaded. What about the legal base? What about the standards? Let me explain. And this is something that must be clear, that at the moment there is no single globally accepted standard for high-speed weight in motion and direct enforcement. What does it mean? That means that each country that operates direct enforcement has to adopt own local legislation and procedures. While the basic decision to go for direct enforcement or not is largely a political decision, there must be always standards that are the basement for the procedures and type approvals and technical part of the WIM sites. So most of the countries I mentioned that are operating the direct enforcement, they are using the following 3 international documents as the basement for the local direct enforcement standards. That is COST 323, American norm ASTM E1318, and OEML R134. There are some differences between them, how the confidence intervals are used or maximum permissible errors are used, and what are the testing procedures and accuracy classes. However, all three are widely used up to the date. Let's talk in more detail about the local direct enforcement standards in the countries that are operating it, which are Czech Republic, Hungary, Russia, and China, as an example. In the table, I have listed in the first row what standards have been used for creating the local legislation and figures for different accuracy requirements for the gross vehicle weight, for axle loads, for speed range, and confidence interval. If you allow me to summarize, it is visible that at the moment, in all countries, more or less 5% of the accuracy limit for gross vehicle weight is used. There are different approaches how to do the type approval, how to verify the equipment in operation. However, 5% we can say that is accepted accuracy for direct enforcement. If we talk about axle load, there are more differences. It goes between 8 and 16% of accuracy for weight of the axles. However, in general, also there are similarities. Speed range, there are some differences too. But usually, the systems are called high-speed WIM. That means that they should operate for up to 100 and more kilometers per hour, which is the case in all the countries that implemented direct enforcement. Confidence level, this is very important because the weight in motion sites are installed on the normal road. They are used in the normal traffic real life conditions, and obviously the 100% confidence is very difficult to be reached. Therefore, in all the countries where they operate direct enforcement, they have decided to use so-called confidence level, which goes below 100%, usually between 90 and 95%. That is allowing certain number of measurement goes out of the accuracy range, but the system is still considered as verified and certified for the direct enforcement. All that forms the basement for the technology. These are the figures that correspond the current state of the high-speed WIM technology, which is logically lower than low-speed WIM or static scales. Let me show you a typical structure of the local standard for direct enforcement. Basically, there are three parts which we can call the legal part. Legal basis, there must be this basic decision, country by country different, that the direct enforcement is allowed. In the technical part of the local standard documentation, usually there are three parts of such a document, which are the general provisions, testing specifications, that means how the type approval of the new WIM system is done, and system specification, what are the requirements on the system. Then we can talk about details of these three basic categories, which are general specifications, operating conditions, range of temperatures, for example, type approval requirements that can be different from the in-operation verification requirements, and finally, of course, definitions, terminology, scope, etc. More than that, there are some other things that must be mentioned when we talk about all the legal and documentation process. There must be defined administrative procedures for penalties, how they are handled. This is country by country a little bit different. Acceptance procedures, there is description of calibration, maintenance, validation of the data before it goes to the penalty, and general recommendations. All that usually is defined by the local metrology authorities. Best practices. This is what we have learned during observation of the preparation of direct enforcement implementation in different countries. The recommendation from my side would be definitely to prepare all the metrology and certification paperwork, all the standards, and also all the detailed procedures, how to handle the documents, back office, penalties, validations, trainings of the operators, and many other things. If a part of the complex process is missing, there are probably going to be some troubles, and the process can be appealed by the truck owners not happy with the penalty. Another set of the typical questions or topics that must be taken into account is the quality of the road, quality of the pavement. Do we have enough locations to install the very accurate high-speed WIM system with excellent road quality? Data validation. Do we have established rules how to handle the data that are not perfect and must be deleted or not used as an evidence? Documentation. Is it absolutely clear that we have all the documentation that can be easily accepted by the Court of Justice if somebody is appealing against the penalty? Do we have enough administrative resources, staff, operators to handle all the process of penalties? And last but not least, do we have defined the penalties correctly? Do we know how much we charge for 1 ton overweight or different scheme? Let me show you some example how the direct enforcement process is realized in the Czech Republic, one of the countries that are using it for quite a long time. It all starts with recording the data by a high-speed weighted motion system installed on a highway or a road. This system must have been certified previously, of course, by the local metrology authority. It usually consists of the wing part with WIM sensors and the data loggers, the vehicle identification part with license plate recognition cameras and overview cameras, and some other components like speed measurement device or communication device. The system automatically records all the passing vehicles, recording their class, weight, axle load, license plate, all the data. In the case the vehicle is labeled as possibly overloaded, it sends the data, which are correctly encrypted and protected against hackers, to the authorities. So up to this moment, all this process is fully automatic without human intervention. Later on, there is a part of the process which is called manual validation. It means that there is an operator sitting in front of back office software that is checking the vehicle the system gets from the WIM site, like on these two pictures. If everything was correct, if the pictures are okay, of good quality, if the license plate was recognized correctly, if there was not some strange movement or behavior of the vehicle that would mean that the data recorded by the system cannot be correct, if there is not a special cargo type that is allowed to be overloaded, etc. There are many things that must be manually double checked. Finally, of course, the operator checks the owner of the vehicle, creates the official letter of penalty that is then finally sent to the owner. Let's have a look on some overload criteria and penalties. Example from Russia. In Russia, the penalty for overloading, depending on the car type, is between 2,000 and 6,000 euro. Quite high indeed. We have here two cases on the pictures. The site located in Sortavala, northwest Russia, recorded in 2017 180 violations. Some of them really overloaded by quite high value, 70% and more. Maximum total weight recorded was more than 50 tons. The amount of penalties from this particular site, which is a regional road, was more than 1 million euro in 1 year. Another example, the site located in Kholmogory, in the region of Arkhangelsk of Russia, recorded in 2017 124 violations, 50% average excess of allowed weight. Maximum total weight was 42 tons. And if we sum up the amount of penalties in that year, it was close to 800,000 euro. Similar example from China. The direct enforcement operates for quite a long time in Guangdong province. There are more than 800 toll plazas located on more than 100 expressways using high-speed WIM. The general rule for overloading penalty is if the overload is less than 1 ton, then allowed limit, the warning is issued. If it's more than 1 ton, then the penalty is almost $80 per ton. Maximum penalty can be more than $4,000 per vehicle. And more vehicles more than 49 tons are not allowed to circulate on expressways. From October 2017 to December 2017, so a few months, the statistics show the following figures. the overload rate decrease by more than 70%. Number of accidents decreased by 30%. And the number of fatalities decreased by more than 20%. Not mentioning the much lower maintenance cost for the highway. These are example figures how direct enforcement is used in China. Let me share some experience, lessons learned from different countries that went through the process of implementing direct enforcement. First, direct enforcement is still quite a new procedure for the end users, for the certification agencies, for the metrology authorities, for the legal system. And usually you can expect long and difficult discussions of all stakeholders before the direct enforcement can be implemented. However, with this problem, Kistler can help. We can facilitate experience from the countries that have done it, and we can advise what are the steps to be taken to make the process of direct enforcement easier. Another point I would like to mention is that many penalized vehicles owners would probably question the evidence and would appeal against the penalty. That means that the local legal system and metrology procedures must be perfectly prepared to explain all the details of the processes. Back office processes, all the documentation, handling the evidence, data, this can also be very complicated and complex to handle. And we can only recommend here to adopt simple and clear processing rules and train extensively all the operators. Big topic everywhere is road quality, not only in the initial stage to decide where the WIM system is to be installed, but also how it changes with time and if the changing road quality can also influence accuracy of measurements. This can be prevented by frequent recalibration and also using our new service we call structural road analysis. I will mention on the following slide. On the graph, on the right part of the slide, you can see three curves. This is an example how it was recorded in time when the high-speed direct enforcement site was installed. The orange curve shows the amount of the penalties. It grows rapidly after the installation, but later on usually it has tendency to drop. Why? Because the vehicles are aware that there can be penalization, and then there is a vehicle measuring system operating 24/7 and they cannot escape. So they realize it and they are not overloaded anymore. This is a perfect preventive result. The blue curve shows that the operating and maintenance cost of the road is going down with time. And to that, the green curve, the penalties are contributing to maintenance cost of the road. I mentioned that I would explain to you a little bit more about structural road analysis. This is a service that Kistler is offering to our customers that has been developed especially to prevent the issues with the road quality in case that we want to operate the highest possible accurate weight in motion system. That means it fits to the direct enforcement definition. The benefits of such a service is that we would help you to find the best location for installation with the best possible accuracy. We can also help you to prevent and avoid the future performance issues and help you to protect your investment. We simply can tell you that this part of the road is okay or not okay for the installation. And also to inform you in advance about the possible maximum accuracy that you can achieve if you are going to install in that particular piece of the road. Thank you for your attention. Have a nice day.